Hey, Planeswalkers, Mythras here. I am super jacked today because we are doing something completely different than what we're used to. So we're actually going to talk through the Arena Open tournament today, and I'm going to provide you a tier list, 1, 2, and 3, in hopes that you will achieve the phase 1 of the best of 1 Arena Open tournament. Now, this is the first time that Wizards has done like a cash prize like this, I believe. I don't know if they've done on MTGO, but I believe this is the first time. It's a big deal. There's actually an article in Forbes about it. So I'm very, very excited about this, especially in the gaming world, because I haven't seen anything like this in the past. So I want to provide you a culmination of all the work that I've done, especially over like the last month and a half, 2 months of deck playing, best of 1 mythic ranking, all that to help you guys prepare for this. And we're going to do it in the form of a tiered system. So hang tight and we're going to jump in there quickly. Now, before we move on to the decks, I just want to let you know that this tier list is available down below in the description for you, along with a video link for most of them. Okay, there's 20 plus decks. I think there's 2 that I did not cover, which is going to be Lukka, as well as Gyruda. So just calling that out now so that you're aware of it. I am going to produce videos for that in the future, but those deck lists in the videos should give you a head start on building your deck, or maybe it's something you played, or on top of that, give you a look into a window view of what you could be playing against, which I always think is very important. So with that said, also don't forget to subscribe to the channel down there for more content like this in the future. Also, don't forget to comment down below if you have questions, because I'm here to help you. Absolutely happy to respond, debate, all those things. So now let's move into the tier list quickly here. I'm going to try and cover this in like 15-20 minutes for you, because if most of you know me, I like to do things fast. I like best of 1 aggro player right now. So let's do this. Now, here's what we got in the deck list here. But before I cover this off, so I spent a lot of time on this, built the tier 1 all the way down to tier 3. So feel free after like 5 minutes to zock out if you're only going to be a tier 1 player. But here's what I do want to talk about first, because aggro always has an advantage in best of 1 because of the hand smoothing algorithm. So please, I'm not going to like kill that, but just be aware that it does make a big difference in how you're playing. That algorithm generally favors very, very fast decks. Additionally, this is why you see decks with like 17 land videos, like crazy stuff like that. Now, I generally play between 20 and 22. I do not play more than that, even though I will show videos for you guys with like 26 lands. Obviously, the Yorion decks have way more too, but something that you absolutely must keep in mind. Now, the other thing that makes a big difference in this is also the player, right? So this is my take on the tiering system. I believe it's pretty good, mainly because I've done a lot of research on this, and 2, I've played almost all these decks, and I've done it in a what I'd say a fairly successful way, right? So I didn't just pick up like a Yorion Lukka deck, which I haven't played, and just lost 10 games in a row. I was like, okay, Yorion's done, right? So this is a culmination of the community stuff, all those things that I've seen. So want to keep that in mind for you guys. Now, the third piece that's going to be very, very important for you as a player is the mulligans. So you're going to want to pay attention exactly to what your opponents are playing. The companion system is the best in allowing you to know what your opponent's going to play. So you absolutely need to keep that in mind when you're mulliganing. Now, there are absolutely times that you can go check. You can watch some of my mythic matches that I've been posting here, all the different episodes where I'm debating, because I believe the mulligan spot is going to be the outline crucial position that you need to take at the beginning of the match before the match starts. I think that's going to make or break a lot of your games. And I'll give you an example. Like, you know, if they're running Lurrus, you got to keep Lurrus off the board. You already know what deck's probably going to come. Same thing with Yorion. And if you're an aggro player, you're gonna have to build your deck, that starting hand to play those things. So, okay, now with that said, that's been about 5 minutes. I'm going to do this about 10, so we're going to keep going here. Tiering system. So why tier? Tiering is important for several reasons. One, it allows us to know the viability of a deck, a character, or so forth in gaming. Now, it's very, very important for us to keep this in mind. Here in Magic, this is obviously something that happens over time. We know that there's a new banning announcement, all that stuff coming out on Monday, I believe, June 1st. So this is totally going to change. But the information is extremely relevant for you for this Arena Open this weekend. So that's what matters, a point in time. And this is why tiering systems are created, is to help you either at that point in time or, for example, games like Super Smash Brothers, right? Do they get nerfed, do they get changed, or does the character tiering list stay the same? Now, some of those tiering lists use letters like S for superb. We're using 1, 2, and 3. You can also use like a plus or minus or a 0.5. Now, personally, I don't like the plus or minus or the 0.5 system because it's like just put it into one bucket or the other. But hey, that's just me. You guys can do what you want with that. I will talk through some of the decks I was debating on in terms of like a tier 2 or 1 or a tier 2 or 3. But just be aware that the bulk of these decks kind of are in the middle. So it's kind of like your bell curve here that we got going on, which is good. It's a good thing in my opinion. So, okay, enough of me talking. Let's go through all these decks quickly. And again, just remember, tier list is down below for you. You can look at the decks. You can look at how to play them. I'm not going to kill these decks. I will go into them quickly here. I will talk through a quick strategy for you and what the point is. So, first off, we're going to start with tier 1 decks. So we have Jeskai, Yorion, Lukka. Obviously, if you guys have been playing this season pretty heavily, this is a top-rated deck already in best of 3. Now, it's still good for best of 1 because its late game is so good. Now, we know it revolves around Lukka, we know it revolves around Yorion, and it's all about stealing your opponent's stuff. It is still, even at its best, it's a slow deck. You're not getting a turn 4 win with this, you guys. It's past turn 5. So keep that in mind. And when I think of best of 1, I think of aggro like turn 4 wins, man. Absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean that this is not a best of 1 deck. It still absolutely is. I still do not like playing this deck. We have things like Glass Casket in here to help you with the best of 1. So things to remember and things to keep in mind. So that is the first one that we're going to cover off on. Next, we got Jeskai Lurrus Cycling. Now, this deck has clearly proven itself to be very competitive in the best of 1 realm. We know that you get Flourishing Fox down, you get a lot of these pingers going, and Zenith Flare for over-the-top damage. A lot happens. Now, you can win really quickly when you got Flourishing Fox on the board. He builds so fast. So as a player that's playing against this, that's always a thing to think about in removing. The hardest piece about this deck, in my opinion, is like when do you keep something on the board versus cycling it. So that's a decision that you have to make over time playing. Generally, it's going to be dependent upon what you have in your hand. Now, this deck, you absolutely do not need to keep a lot of lands in your hand. You're going to want to have your starting hand having a lot of cycle cards, to be honest. So that's the one thing that you can run into trouble with that I found when I piloted this deck is you're actually, the thing that can hurt you is if you run out of cycle. So that will also help you figure out whether or not you want to put something on the board. The benefit is if it goes in the graveyard, it's only going to make Zenith Flare better. All right, next deck. So we got Obosh Mono Red at T1 still. So this deck is great. Now, the only thing I don't like about Obosh is, even though he penalizes us, especially for Mono Red, I like my 2-drop. And we'll talk about Mono Red next and why. Now, he is obviously sorry, I'm covering that up. Obosh is a Torbrand on steroids, so he does a lot of damage. This deck's got a lot of ramp, and the creatures has got a lot of one drops, a lot of three drops, and that's where it caps out minus Obosh in terms of casting cost. Now, this deck is great. It was holding #1 for a while at one point. Very, very competitive deck. Something that I, again, as a Mythic player right now, and I'll talk about my deck slightly next, maybe, that I've been playing anyway. This deck is very, very tough and a lot to do, especially, again, because you're hitting light up the stage. Now, when Obosh gets on the board, it becomes kind of the same thing with like Yorion. It's like game over. So this deck can win really quickly without Obosh, or it can win with Obosh. So it's a nice little cap there. All right, moving on to the next one. Here's T1 Mono Red. So this one, many of you may debate. I think this is obviously a T1 deck for several reasons. Now, there's multiple variations that you can play. This one's the one that I used to hit Mythic last season. I play a slightly modified version right now. You can check out one of the videos if you want to take a look at that one. But I know this one does work too. Now, things to keep in mind. So again, what we gain with not playing Obosh is Robber the Rich and Runaway Steamkin. Now, I love Steamkin because he can accelerate these decks really, really fast. And when you get one or two of these guys on the board and you get your one drops going, things happen really, really quickly. This is an absolute turn 4 kill deck. Absolutely. Like, hands down. And that's a big reason why I play this deck in best of one. I get a lot of turn 4 kills. Feel free to check out the videos. I got a lot of those I can show you in terms of T4 kills. Now, again, in my opinion, some people may think this is a tier 2 deck. Same with Obosh, but for best of one, this is definitely, in my opinion, a tier 1 deck. So, all right, on to the next one here. T1 Rakdos Lurrus Sack. So this deck at the beginning of the season was #1. So this deck is absolutely amazing. It is a little bit slower. Now it's not a fast like turn 4 deck, but it's got a lot of viability. It's got good short-term range, good mid-range, and even in the long game, because a lot of things you can do with it. You can achieve a lot of wins just by draining your life of your opponents, which most of you already know. Lurrus to bring things back, Call the Death Dweller, great cards. So again, this deck I would highly recommend in playing this tournament as well. So tier 1. All right, here we go. Next one. T1 Jeskai Keruga Fires. So after I started with Lurrus, I moved into Keruga Fires. This deck is so good in best of one. This is probably the one I hate playing against the most, to be honest, and mainly because when Kenrith gets on the board, it's game over, man. The gaining the life back against an aggro deck is so crucial, so crucial. And this is why I actually think this is also better than the Lukka deck. Now, the problem with this deck is if you do play Lukka, you have a few answers, right? You got Brazen, you got Bone Crusher, and I'm saying this because Lukka's always targeting typically a token. Now, the pro players, the guys that play really well with Lukka, they'll actually take Yorion off the board. So when you're playing against mono red, it becomes very hard. Now, if you get to your next turn, you can absolutely use Narset to move it off the board. You could use Teffi. There's a lot of things that you can do, but something to keep in mind. Now, this deck is not it's not a turn 4 deck. It's definitely a turn 5 deck, though. Definitely a turn 5 deck. So, all right, next. We are at about 15 minutes, and here we go to get through tier 1. Last one here, I think that's tier 1, is Rakdos Knights. A lot of people debate this as being like a 1.5, 2. I think this has got a lot of viability, mainly because of Unbreakable and Fight as 1. You're not necessarily going to get board wiped. You get a few of these guys down. It goes really quick, and it can absolutely be like a turn 4, turn 5 kill deck, depending on how you play it. So again, I play this one a ton. I really like this deck as well for best one. All right, at that, we're at 15 minutes. Now we're going to jump into the tier 2 decks. All right, tier 2. Mono Black Obosh. Now, this was a top 1 or 2 deck at some point in the season. Again, a great deck for best of 1. You got to really drop some of your bigger creatures early. You got board removal. You got some life gain in here. You got your ramp. You got a lot of things that you can do here. This deck is great in terms of just trying to overrun your opponents with some big things. And then obviously you got Obosh. All right, next one. Mono White Lurrus Auras. So this deck I see all the time in Mythic. I really dislike playing against this deck as well. So as much as I don't like Kenrith, I probably don't like this deck in its entirety, mainly because of the life gain. Again, when you're looking to win fast, you don't want your opponents gaining life, and this deck definitely does it for you. Now, this deck is so good, but the thing that you got to keep in mind is when you go into protection, you can't hit white, otherwise you're going to drop your auras. But some pro players will obviously target their own guy to reset their board with some of those enchantments, mainly when you have Lurrus on the board. So something else to keep in mind. Now, lots of cool things you can do with this deck. Lots of ways to evade your opponents, as well as lots of ways to hit some win conditions. Stolen Coil's great, all that jazz. All right, next tier 2 deck that we have, Winota. Again, this one's kind of a borderline deck. This one here is slower than some of the other versions. Now, there's a 4-color version that runs great. There's one with the Simic like sack where you can cheat and get Winota on like turn 3. So it's a great deck. It runs really well when it hits. Now, when Winota does not hit, it does not run well. And your opponents, there are answers to a lot of these things as well. So again, debatable, but this is, again, this version here is a little bit slower one, but I think this is definitely a tier 2 deck. But you never know. All right, next, Rakdos Sack with Obosh. So this deck's a lot of fun, but we lose the 2-drop here again with Obosh. Now, the sacrifice stuff is great. A key piece in here is weaponize the monsters. This card is awesome. It's great when it's paired with a lot of the other things like Judith, as well as Mayhem Devil and Call the Death Dweller. Lots of things you can do with this deck. Lots of interactions. I love Claim the Firstborn. This is going to be very potent in the best of 1 realm, so something to keep in mind too. I always try and play around it if I can, if I'm playing against it, but I love to play it myself. So, all right, here we go. Next deck, we got Jun De Sacrifice. So this one's quickly kind of came on the scene here in the last couple of weeks with the Red Bull Untapped tournament. I think it placed like 4th or something like that, if I recall. Now, this deck's got a lot of longevity. There's a lot of things you can do. The biggest piece about it is hitting that below Citadel and essentially just nuking your opponent at the end. Great. That's really great. And again, because it's an artifact, we can play it the turn it drops. So that is obviously a 6-turn deck, but it gives you the viability to kind of stall and enter into some of the long game. And Migration Path is kind of something you could switch out here if you wanted. And a lot of these sideboards have things as well that you could play. All right, next one. Where are we at? 19 minutes. Sorry, guys. I guess I lied. I'm going to go over 20. There's just too many decks. Temur Clover. So Temur Clover was last, before Ikoria, was definitely one of the top decks in the meta. Here it's dropped to tier 2 in best of 1. Now, it's still certainly very good, but we know that you have to have the Lucky Clover most likely in your hand to make it, really well. If you have it, I mean, like it's gonna run well. If you don't, it's not gonna run well. But it's still a great deck. Now, again, I talked about the player. This is something you can easily bring from last season and this season. Same with Mono Red, actually. That's going to do well. I mean, if you've played it a ton, that's really going to help you. And I think it's something you guys can easily fall back on. All right, next one. Gruul, Kaheera. Now, I really, really like this deck. Lots of good answers. This was like a top 5 deck here again recently. Gives you lots of answers on the board, lots of things, ramps really, really fast, and you still got a lot of over-the-top damage and things that you can do. I really, really like the destroy artifact or enchantments here. Lots of coverage against some of the broader decks that you may or may not be playing in this tournament. A very, very good tier 2 deck. I struggled with this one a little bit too. You know, again, this kind of goes back to that 0.5 argument. It's a little slow for me, even though you got some of the ramp. You could run the elf in here and get a little bit faster, or you could run the goose too. But you're gonna lose a lot of the deck's viability. So anyway, all right, next, Keruga Reclamation. So realistically, Temur Rec is the deck here for tier 2. I like the Keruga version better. Now, I ran really, really well with this deck. I played it for quite a while too, and I really, really enjoy this one. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but if you don't get the Reclamation down on turn 4, you're gonna start paying a penalty. And I say that because these tier 2 decks or some of the late game decks, you have to hit. If you're not hitting against aggro, it's going to be a rough match. You can still certainly win, right? But you're going to get frustrated, and the matches get harder. But again, anyway, love this deck. Lots of answers, lots of things you can do. Night Pack Ambushers, still like one of my favorite cards. So, all right, next deck. What do we got? We got tier 2 Bant Yorion Control. So this again is a very popular best of 3 deck. Here it is for best of 1. Lots of things you can do with this deck. Again, win conditions, mainly agent, but you got Euro here as well to help you through. Elspeth counters, Conquers Death. Always a great card. You got Tamio here to dig. Or return cards from your graveyard to do a lot of stuff for you. All right, next. Mono Green Stompy. So I think this is a great best of 1 deck. I ran really, really well with this. Scales well, and you get some life recovery. There's a lot of things you can do here. Now, the one thing that this deck, in my opinion, loses, but you still have Vivian here, is the removal, right? So you don't have as much removal with this deck, which to me puts it in the tier 2 for the best one, even though again this is a top 10 deck for sure. I really like this deck, don't get me wrong. This one I struggled with, but we put it in tier 2. So all right, next. Now that covers off on the tier 2 decks. We're gonna cap it with the tier 3, and we're 3 minutes over 20 minutes. All right, tier 3, Temur Yorion Elementals. So this deck I really like too. Again, another top deck for a while in the best of 3 world, or I mean, constructed, I guess, is constructed, I guess. I like this deck a lot, but again, lots of ways to get around things. It does scale fast when you hit, but again, similar to what that story was with some of these longer matches, you gotta hit. If you don't, it's not gonna be pretty. So here we go. Next on our tier 3, Umori Dimir Flash. Now, I'm a huge fan of Flash, and I like Simic Flash. I hit Mythic with it a few seasons ago, but it's just not fast enough. It's kind of an oxymoron because it's Flash, but the reality is it's just not quick enough. It's still a very, very good deck. You will probably see it, but everything when it runs well, right? And it depends on what you're playing. Now, the thing with this deck here is once you get moving, you get the draw, you can get some of the board control, which is very important. You get the life gain, you get to target creature or planeswalker and destroy with Dirgebat. So lots of good things that you can do here, and Umari's great, absolutely great. All right, next up, Grixis Lurrus Control. Now I had a hard time with this deck. I would say it's tier 3 in my book. Unfortunately, even though it's a top 200 deck that I've seen in Mythic, because it's slow. It's just a little bit slow. But if you get the board controlled, you got the board controlled. Now, for most of you who haven't played this one, it can be a little bit harder to pilot as well. But essentially, Kroxa, Lazav are really kind of your win conditions here. So keep that in mind. But bringing Kroxa back for 2 on Lazav in like turn 3, nah, you can't do it turn 3. Turn 4 is pretty amazing. And you really, really lock your opponents up. So again, really fun deck. I really enjoy this one, but tier 3. All right, Azorius Yorion Control. Now, this is absolutely a tier 1 best of 3 deck, but it's too slow for best of 1. So it is a tier 3 deck for best of 1. So most of you may know that this deck won the Untapped Red Bull tournament, I believe, and then was also #1 at the same time for Constructed. So here it is. Not surprised. We had Azorius Control last time as king before Ikoria, and it's back again. So anyway, all right, tier 3, 2 more decks left. Now, Sultai, Simic, Umori, Gyruda, definitely tier 3 deck. Just, again, too slow. This is a really interesting version. I am going to make a video on this one. I haven't yet, that I wanted to play anyway. But most of the Gyruda stuff is Simic. This is a Sultai version. A little more board clear, a little bit more options here with this. But, again, tier 3, most of you know, get this guy on. Hit with Agent, keep popping, keep making, keep getting him on. Get Gyruda engine going. All right. Last but not least, one of my favorite decks, unfortunately, tier 3, Simic Flash. And this pains me. This pains me to put this at tier 3, but that's where it goes. And this is more of like a Simic Ramp slightly version of it too. So we're not playing the 2-drop counters minus the gates. So you're gonna have a hard time countering on turn 3 against 1 and 2 drops. So unless you're first, I guess. But then now you got a mana base problem. But anyway, here you go. That closes us off. So that was roughly 20 decks. I went a little over 20 minutes. We'll stretch that a little bit. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing this for you. A little bit different take. Again, lastly, deck lists, tier list down below. Don't forget it. If you have questions, ask. I'm here to help. I will do my best. I am financial advice, right? I'm not here to tell you what to pick, blah, 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 blah. Nah, that's your choice. I'm here to help provide some information for you and hopefully give you some options in terms of doing the best that you can do in the Arena Open tournament, and hopefully get a chance at winning some cash. Now, if it works and this works well for you, please let me know. If you don't like it, let me know. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, you guys. Love seeing you more. Love hearing from you. I like doing this stuff. So please sub, because that's a nice thank you. So last thing here, I absolutely want to wish you guys best of luck. So good luck on your opportunity to win some moolah. I wish everyone could do it, but I know that's not the name of the game. And hopefully one of these decks works for you. Again, this was 20 plus decks, the current meta, May 2020 tier system, broken down at a high level. Details down below. All right. Take care, Planeswalkers. See you again. Don't forget to sub. I will see you soon with some more videos. Take care and good luck with the Arena Open. Mithras out.